Gospel powerhouse Leandria Johnson didn't just sing her truth, this time she unleashed it like fire. In a jaw-dropping moment that has church leaders trembling and fans stunned, Leandria locked eyes with the camera and delivered a message no one saw coming. With raw conviction, she called out none other than Bishop T.D. Jakes by name and with three chilling words declared, "Your time is up." Was this a prophetic warning, a personal feud, or the start of a massive shake-up in the gospel world? What I'm about to reveal will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the church's most powerful voices. This isn't just another gospel music headline, it's a bold confrontation that has the faith community shaken to its core. Leandria Johnson, the Grammy-winning powerhouse known for her raw authenticity and fearless truth-telling, has spoken out once again, but this time, she didn't target critics or industry politics. She aimed directly at one of the most influential pastors in the world, Bishop T.D. Jakes. In this video, we're breaking down exactly what Leandria said, why she said it, and the decades of tension fueling her explosive message. We'll uncover how her words connect to a growing wave of gospel artists calling out church leadership, the heated reactions from fans and pastors, and why this moment could mark the beginning of a larger reckoning in the church. And trust me, the receipts we've uncovered will shock you. By the end, you'll understand the true weight behind those three words, "Your time is up," and the storm they've unleashed across the gospel community. Leandria's remarks, according to others, were not merely personal, they might have foreseen. Let's go back in time and examine the events that preceded this startling declaration before we move on to that prophesied claim, because the tale truly starts to get intriguing at that point. You must be familiar with Leandria Johnson's past in order to comprehend why her most recent comment is so powerful. She's no stranger to shaking things up in the gospel industry. I assure you, Leandria distinguished herself from the start of her career. She was not the polished, reserved, public relations trained artist that the industry frequently attempts to create. She was unpolished. She was authentic. She was also openly contentious at times. Fans fell in love with her strong voice and emotional performances back in 2010 when she initially gained national recognition after winning BET's Sunday Best. Behind the scenes, however, the business soon discovered that she was also a lady who voiced her opinions without worrying about upsetting anyone, even religious leaders, industry executives, or pastors. Leandria has been quite candid about her challenges over the years, including her jail term, her struggles with alcohol, and her dissatisfaction with what she refers to as the church's politics. She has openly denounced the hypocrisy she has witnessed in gospel circles, warning audiences that far too many leaders prioritize rank, wealth, and image over truly helping others. When she went live on social media in 2018, she expressed her displeasure with church culture and even used some offensive language that shocked the Christian community. This was one of her most notorious moments. Some criticized her remarks as insulting, while others applauded her for expressing what many believers already thought but were too scared to express. She expressed her dissatisfaction with the Christian celebrity system that prioritizes image and ticket sales over genuineness and service to her supporters the same year. Even at that time, it was evident that Leandria had no qualms about questioning the system she was a part of. And now for the crucial part. Bishop T. Jakes and other powerful leaders saw many of the remarks. Although there is no proof of a personal conflict at the time, it set the stage for the current situation. Some in the field think that some pastors, particularly those in charge of enormous megachurches with substantial money streams, found her critiques too personal. This leads us to the present. For this most recent instance was not merely a casual comment, it was an outspoken public declaration that caused some individuals to whisper behind their backs and even some pastors to try to repair the harm. However, she told Bishop T.D. Jakes, "Let's first understand the man himself and why calling him out publicly is such a bold move. Before we get into the specific statements, you must first understand Bishop T.D. Jakes before we can analyze Leandria's exact statement. Calling him out in public is not only dangerous, but it is practically unheard of in the gospel community. T.D. Jakes is more than just a pastor. He is a global brand. He founded the Potter's House, a megachurch in Dallas with tens of thousands of members and a sizable international following. For decades, he has been regarded as one of the most respected and influential voices in modern Christianity. His influence extends far beyond the pulpit. He is a best-selling author, a movie producer, a sought-after conference speaker, and a trusted spiritual advisor to politicians, celebrities, and business leaders. His books have sold millions of copies. His sermons are streamed globally, and his annual Woman Thou Art Loosed has attracted crowds that fill entire arenas. Though few in the gospel community have the guts to speak out against him directly, the name T.D. Jakes carries both spiritual authority and brand power. This is where things get complicated though, because great influence comes with great scrutiny. Over the years, critics have accused Jake of blurring the line between ministry and business. He has been questioned about prosperity, gospel teachings, the commercialization of faith, and whether megachurch culture sometimes separates leaders from the actual needs of everyday believers. His church functions like a well-oiled corporation, complete with book deals, merchandise, movie productions, and ticketed events that some claim serve more for profit than prophecy. This is not to say that T.D. Jake lacks ardent supporters, for he certainly does, and many of them fiercely defend him, citing his decades of philanthropic work, his inspirational teachings, and his ability to bring faith into the mainstream. To them, he is a contemporary example of how God can elevate one person's influence to have a huge impact on the world. This is precisely why Leandria's remarks were so powerful. She didn't just criticize a random church leader. Instead, she went for the top of the mountain. In a field where doing so can result in exclusion from events, loss of endorsements, and a rift with powerful allies, Leandria made it apparent that she isn't interested in playing it safe. It takes a lot of guts to say that in public, and the words, "Your time is up," whether you agree with her or not, were clear, purposeful, and directed directly at the heart of someone who has built an empire around his name and message. The part you may not be aware of is that, according to several insiders, Leandria's statement was not about a single incident or disagreement. Rather, it was a call out of deeper frustrations with the way some megachurch leaders operate behind closed doors. Some even think she was speaking on behalf of other artists and believers who feel silenced by the system. In times like these, it's rarely just about one interview or one statement. But what exactly did she say, and why did she say it now? Perhaps the most significant hint of all is the timing, as something that occurred in the church world just days before her statement may have been the last straw for Leandria Johnson. According to several sources in the gospel music and ministry community, tensions had been subtly growing between Leandria Johnson and a number of prominent church leaders for months. In Leandria Johnson's case, that spark appears to have come from a series of events in the weeks preceding her explosive message. A week prior to her now viral statement, Bishop T.D. Jakes hosted a high-profile event at the Potter's House that attracted celebrity guests, corporate sponsors, and a lot of media attention. She had been observing what she believed to be growing patterns of spiritual performance without genuine connection. Pastors preaching one thing from the pulpit while living a completely different reality behind closed doors. Leandria, who has always advocated for accessibility and authenticity in ministry, reportedly found the extravagant production, VIP ticket prices, and exclusive backstage passes that seemed to turn a church service into something akin to a red carpet affair particularly troubling. Even though the event's theme was based in faith, she believes that God's message should not be packaged like a luxury product for the elite, and that faith should never be hidden behind a paywall. In fact, she has previously stated that she will not put a price tag on worship, a position that has both won her fans and caused friction with promoters who depend on ticket sales. The online debate only exacerbated the situation, with both T.D. Jakes supporters and detractors posting on social media about whether megachurch culture has gone too far in fusing marketing and ministry. Hashtags began to trend in specialized church circles, with some arguing for transparency and others supporting the event as a valid means of funding ministry initiatives. But that wasn't the only factor. At about the same time, there were rumors that some gospel artists were being pressured to live up to the expectations of church leaders or risk being passed over for major opportunities. This struck a chord with Leandria, who built her brand on doing the exact opposite. The last straw, according to insiders, was a purported private conversation between Leandria and a well-known church insider, who implied that the new generation of vocal gospel singers would be dealt with. She had been approached about aligning herself more closely with some church leaders, possibly even appearing in public with them to demonstrate unity. But instead of feeling honored, she felt confined, as if her silence was being bought. Whether it was intended as a warning or a threat is debatable, but it was obviously not to her liking. For someone like Leandria, who thrives on speaking truth to power, Those words might have been the catalyst for her to take a daring public stance. And so she didn't hold back during a live appearance on a podcast that has thousands of listeners. The words that followed would send shockwaves through church leadership circles and gospel music alike. Your time is up. But here's the thing, those 4 words are loaded. She looked straight into the camera and addressed Bishop T.D. Jakes by name in a tone that was equal parts prophetic and firm. In gospel culture, where public statements from artists about pastors are almost always carefully scripted, the fact that this was live, unfiltered, and direct is part of what makes it so powerful. They could be interpreted as a personal call-out based on past interactions, a warning of moral accountability, or a prophetic declaration of spiritual change. This leads us to the next big question. What did she mean when she said, "Your time is up"? And how did the public, the church, and even T.D. Jakes himself respond to it? The moment was explosive because it happened in real time, without edits or the filter of a public relations team. The room fell silent as Leandria, who had been discussing the state of the church, the challenges of staying true to oneself in the gospel industry, and the growing pressure to fit in with the megachurch image, leaned in toward the microphone with a casual yet unmistakable conviction, and said, "Bishop T.D. Jakes, your time is up." This wasn't gossip. This wasn't shade. This was a public declaration with spiritual, political, and personal overtones, and even the host appeared momentarily unsure of whether to ask for clarification or let the statement hang in the air. However, for those watching live, the weight of those words was undeniable. Clips of the incident went viral on social media within minutes of the episode's conclusion, with fans reposting the video with captions like, "She said what needed to be said," and finally, "Someone speaking the truth." Others responded with shock and incredulity, wondering if it was prudent or even biblical to publicly criticize a pastor with such prominence and influence on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. For every voice applauding her courage, there was another warning that such public confrontations could split the church. Then came the industry reaction, the one that most fans never see. The debate erupted, and hashtags like Leandria Speaks, "Your time is up," and church accountability began trending within some communities. Promoters, managers, and other artists were frantically trying to determine the implications of this for their bookings and relationships behind the scenes. Would Leandria's remarks jeopardize collaborations with gospel labels or radio stations that had connections to influential people in T.D. Jakes' inner circle? We've all thought it at some point, but saying it out loud, that's a different game. One gospel singer told a blog anonymously, while other singers privately contacted Leandria to give support and caution. They were being asked in actual boardrooms. Although she has no fear, it will cost her. In the meantime, T.D. Jakes himself didn't explicitly answer, at least not verbally. Rather, he gave a sermon the Sunday following the statement went viral, which many saw as a covert reaction. He warned that the enemy frequently uses diversion in his speech regarding people who argue against God's anointed. Although he never specifically named Leandria, the timing left those who had been following the tale with little reason to reject it. It's interesting to note that some churchgoers considered this to be a watershed moment. They maintained that, for far too long, powerful leaders have acted with little accountability, protected by their clout and devoted fan bases. They claimed that Leandria's comment was more about advocating for a new era of transparency than it was about discrediting someone. There's more to this, though. Because your time is up has a very specific significance for people who adhere to prophetic language. It implies that there will soon be a change in spiritual authority or leadership, that someone who has been in a position for too long is going to be removed by God. Regardless of whether you agree with that interpretation, it's obvious that Leandria understood the impact such words would have in a religious setting. Furthermore, more people than only gospel enthusiasts were listening as the discussion became louder. The narrative started to gain traction on major entertainment sites, secular blogs, and even celebrity gossip websites. This was suddenly more than a moment for the gospel industry. It was a public spectacle that made it difficult to distinguish between pop culture drama and ecclesiastical dispute. The most intriguing aspect, though, is how Leandria handled the criticism. She did not back down, apologize, or attempt to make amends. Instead, she doubled down. The most illuminating aspect of this whole incident may be what she said next. Bold claims are frequently followed in the gospel industry with a well-crafted explanation, which helps to diffuse tensions and maintain industry ties. However, Leandria Johnson doesn't work that way. The criticism seems to ignite a fire beneath her, if anything. Leandria went live on Instagram a few days after her "Your Time Is Up" rant became viral. Thousands of others watched in hopes that she might change her mind or soften her remarks. Rather, she smiled at her audience, took a sip from her coffee cup, and declared, "I said what I said." Instantly, the comments section erupted, with some people praising her and using heart emojis, while others accused her of being disrespectful or conceited. She explained her logic throughout the course of the following 30 minutes. Leandria made it apparent that her message was one of accountability rather than personal retaliation, without ever bringing up any specific private information. She discussed the perils of elevating any leader, spiritual or otherwise, to such a position that they are unassailable. She discussed how even the most powerful people should be subject to scrutiny when needed in the church. She stated, "You shouldn't be scared of inquiries if you're doing well. Transparency shouldn't be feared. You understand that accountability is a component of the calling if you are genuinely called." Her supporters had harsh things to say. They commended her for remaining steadfast and not allowing her fear of losing followers or gigs to change her mind. Many even started telling their personal tales of being shunned or marginalized in places of worship when they dared to question authority. With the hashtag #accountability in the church gaining popularity alongside "Your Time Is Up," it turned into a movement unto itself. However, another group had a different perspective. There are many who think she was insulting spiritual authority and causing divisiveness. In a video, a well-known preacher even made an oblique reference to her, stating, "It's risky to criticize God's chosen without knowing the whole story." That led to yet another round of discussion about what it means to be God's chosen in the context of the contemporary church. Leandria then revealed even another shocking revelation. She made hints toward the end of her live stream that her remarks were just the start and that she would have more to say when the time was right. A flurry of conjecture was triggered by that one sentence. Did she know anything about the methods used by leaders? Did she intend to reveal more about the inner workings of megachurch culture? Or was she foretelling a more significant change in church leadership? One thing was certain, regardless of her goals, she had no intention of letting the fever subside in silence. This wasn't a headline for a day. In the gospel world, it was a spark that had the potential to ignite something far larger. There's no doubting that Leandria Johnson just confronted one of the most influential people in the church. And she didn't back down, regardless of whether you view her as a troublemaker or a truth teller.